Good afternoon, friends. Thanks so much for joining us today again. However, I think I need to first of all apologize for the delay for today. This is due to some unplanned technical glitches here and there, but fine, we've settled that now. And let's go back to the business. Thanks for joining us today. Again, it's Organ House Concert and Seminar Series at the Department of Music, Mountaintop University. Today, we are going back to a discourse, a line of conversation we established a few weeks ago, which is also rooted in our ongoing project, which is called the Organ House Documentation and Digitization Project. So within this project, we've been engaging the idea of organ in Nigeria and organ performances, organ practices. We had initial series, which is the first one. And this one is the second in this particular line of discourse. And today, we are so happy to have our friends, colleagues. Some of them are quite, they are not uncommon or unknown. They are not newcomer in this field, particularly in the Nigerian organ music contest. I'm talking about the Southwest now. So some of them, which I will introduce shortly, or do introduce themselves, you know them, you are used to them. They are popular faces when we talk about organ music. I mean organ. And when I mean organ again, we can also divide it into two contexts. We talk about pipe organ, the long-standing culture of organ music in Nigeria. So these are friends of ours and the presenters of today and the discussants. They are, I can tell you, they are rooted in this discourse and this history. Hence, we are happy to have them today as part of this conversation, and also for joining us, in mapping what we are, tentatively codifying or, mapping as the Nigerian Organ School. So the business of today then is we initially explored the Lagos axis, an aspect within the Lagos axis. But today, we are taking a kind of a wide, a giant step, into the other part of the Southwest Nigeria. Some of you know this area very well, because it has a long-standing history. We've had organists, singers, and different narratives from this angle. I am talking about the Ilesha region, the Ilesha axis. So then the discourse today is, can we talk about the Ilesha school of thought in terms of Nigerian organ school? So today, I am so happy to have our colleagues. Some of them are already waiting. And also, we have people waiting to hear from us online. And again, I want to thank Dr. One of the presenters today, or for today, is Dr. Adeboye Ifaturoti. Shortly, I will hand over the baton to him to introduce himself and tell us about his ongoing work. And also today we are going to have Mr. Korede Omopeloye, and with me on ground, I have one of us, Mr. Eyitayo Oginni. Yeah. So let's start from Mr. Eyitayo Oginni. You are welcome to the Organ House, Mr. Eyitayo. Thanks so much for coming. Can you please introduce yourself to our friends and colleagues online?
Okay. Thank you very much. My name is Eyitayo Oginni. A music enthusiast, a music director, and a music consultant too. A brief history of myself.
Of course.
Okay. Well, I got my teeth in music at I'll say the prestigious Holy Trinity Cathedral, Omopeloye, Ilesha, which happens to be like I'm not being biased, but it's like the epicenter of church music in Egyptian land. And of course, trained under giants like Sunday Olawu of Kina Yorefim, Lola Fashiru, who's in Kansas now, and Fem Farori, the late Fem Farori, who was a prolific organist and composer, and many other people. So, well, that's it. We happen to have a very, very rich history in the church. I mean, I can talk of the 30s, 40s, and 50s, where there were programs on the WNBS broadcast service, and some of it has a rich culture, and thankfully, some of us grew under those influences, and which has shaped our ways today, and we're grateful for that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, quickly, let's join our colleagues. Let's go to North America. Okay, thank you. We have Dr. Adeboye Ifaturoti. Thanks so much for joining us, Dr. Ifaturoti, and thanks for your time, your kind, patience, and also for all we've discussed and coming to this, to join us, today. You are welcome to our concert and seminar series at the Organ House at Mountaintop University. Kindly introduce yourself to our friends and colleagues who are with us today.
Thank you very much. My name is Adeboye Ifaturoti. I'm a comparative linguist and an organ enthusiast. I'm very glad to be a part of this conversation, and thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, our next presenter, our next discussant today is also Mr. Lekan. Where's Mr. Lekan? I'm sure he's a Mr. I'm sure Mr. Lekan is online with us there. I'm trying to check for him.
Oh, yes, I am.
Yeah, Mr. Lekan, yeah, okay. So thanks so much. Thank you. Kindly introduce yourself to our friends and colleagues, and want to hear from you. Just introduce yourself, then we'll move on from there.
All right, thank you. Thank you everyone also for having me. My name is Lekan Abiodun. I wear two caps, actually. I am an organist, I am a music enthusiast. I am also a chartered accountant. So, there are people people who know me as chartered accountants. Most of them will be surprised hearing, okay, I also play the organ, or I know anything in music. And people who know me in music, they usually shudder when they also hear that I'm into finance. But that being said, I've been into music over 30 years now. I actually started while I was in the secondary school, junior secondary school, when music was introduced to us. And that was one of the things that forced me to actually join the choir at the prestigious Holy Trinity Church, Omopeloye, that is the cathedral now, and under the tutelage of the likes of Mr. Sunday Olawowo and Lola Fasheru, and afterwards, Femi Farori. Well, apart from studying music actively under a lot of people, I have also taken on graded exams and trainings at Muson and at ABRSM. And currently, I'm the Organist and Choirmaster at St. Paul's Church, Breadfruit, Lagos. Well, that's just for now. Let's just keep it like that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lekan. Thanks so much. And thanks for showing the other cap, the other aspects. I didn't know you are into finance, actually, but thanks for showing us that today. Yeah. So let's move quickly to Mr. Korede Omopeloye. Yeah. Mr. Korede, how are you today? How are you, sir? Are you there? Hello, Mr. Korede. Okay. Thank you for joining us again, although with you are
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. We can hear you. Kindly introduce yourself to our friends and colleagues.
My name is Omopeloye. I'm a pianist and I teach at Muson Center. Well, I used to be an organist, and I'm sure my business here is is because I was the organist at St. Peter's the Shon or Ilesha. I'm sure that's why you have me on this panel. I think there's nothing more to say about that. I'm also a music enthusiast. I'm a music producer. And yes, I think that's all you need to know about me. Anyways. And thanks for having me once again.
Thank you so much. Thank you also for coming to joining us again. Yeah, particularly from this perspective within this a unique context again. Thank you so much. Okay, I think we now need to quickly, get into the business of the day. So again, the business of the day and the question, the focus is the Ilesha axis. I've been asking myself, and many people have been asking me also, that what is unique about this Ilesha phenomenon? You know, when you meet people in Lagos, there's always one of the elephants in the room is people say, oh, there's a particular church, Omofe this, Omofe that, Omofe that. Then the question is, what is unique about this environment? And also, most of the churches and most of the guys also, the organists, those experienced organists that are now operating within the Lagos axis, most of them are also, in one way or the other, they've passed through this, region. Then the question is, where is the place of this phenomenon in the Nigerian school? How do we start, thinking about it, and how do we map it? But this is just a question and me just thinking out loud. Let's get into the business. So we have a few, questions, few areas to explore today, and I'm happy that we have people who are experienced and capable enough to help us, unravel or unpack these, questions for today. So I'm going to start with a general one, perhaps. And again, the order of response is quite open, although we'll try as much as possible to pass it around. But I just want to tell you that this is a conversation, it's a dialogue. So just be free. We want to know, let's engage and let's, share ideas. And when it is time, we'll open the floor to our friends to ask questions here and there. So the first question today is, okay, for me, how can we describe the Ilesha organ music, the music landscape? I think that's the first question. How do we describe it? We've heard about Lagos, but this Ilesha phenomenon, how do we describe it? I think it's best for those who have quite a close affinities or experience within landscape to introduce us, more like introduce the exam. So where do we start from? Can we start from locally, or we take it online? Where do we start? Maybe we should start from here.
Okay. Thank you for having me. I would say the genesis of church music in Ilesha, I would start from the CMS, the Church Missionary Society, who brought Anglicanism into Egyptian land. And I think the Vidindra and other missionaries came to Ilesha, but the first church was Iloro. Because if we're going to start about music, we have to start about the history of churches in Egyptian land.
Definitely.
So the first church in Ilesha was Iloro. And there was this story about Iloro having two palm trees in front of the church. So when they're describing, they will say, just go to that house with two palm trees. Okay. So when the new building was, the building was finished in around 78 or so, they have two towers, just like St. Paul's Cathedral anyway, but the dome. So after 1894, Omofe congregants were always going to Iloro to worship, and they just felt, rather than trekking that short distance or that 3-4 kilometers, why not just let us have our own church? So Omofe has always been like, the forward thinkers, Ijeshas of course have always been, very resilient, and they started their own church. So I think the church building started around 39, and by 1950, the church was completed. So if you look at the distance, Iloro was completed around 70s, Omofe completed their own church in 1950. So in the 50s anyway, in Nigeria, there had been this surge of churches getting organs. For instance, the organ at Faji, the organ at Faji, St. Peter's Faji, and so many other churches like Kudeti, they were acquiring organs then. So I think around the 60s, during Ifadeju, a very prominent music person in Ilesha. I think they acquired the Alfred E. Davis organ. That was in 1964.
What do you call it?
Alfred E. Davis.
Okay.
It's a defunct organ company now, but very lovely British tone, and sounds exceptional.
Sorry, what do you call it again?
Alfred Davis.
Okay, Alfred Davis.
Alfred Davis. It's folded up now. It's not. It's
because
no longer.
we are coming back to Alfred.
Okay,
we
no
are coming
problem.
back to
Alfred E. Davis.
Yeah.
So that happens to be the first pipe organ in Ijesha land.
Wow.
And if you go to Omofe today, at a time while we were growing up, there was a plaque that all the people who donated 30 pounds, or should be like 25 pounds actually. So 25 pounds and above, their names were inscribed at the back of the, you have the Lufadejus, you have Oshun, you have Ojofe Itimi, ZTC. So all prominent members of the church donated it, and it's there. So I would say that pipe organ shaped the trajectory of music in Omofe, in fact, in Egyptian land, because I would say virtually all the four discordants here have played that organ at one time or the other.
Interesting. Okay.
So
we are on the right space, on the right.
Yes. So to add, Omofe Choir used to, like I said earlier in the opening statement, used to have this program on WNBS in the 50s, I guess, and it was maybe shortwave or medium wave then. So people in Kano, in Kaduna, in Maiduguri could actually listen to them. So they had a running program every Sunday.
Wow.
And then more recently, I think the Ifadeju family too sponsored one, I think between 2005 and 2010 or so.
You mean they have Sunday broadcast
Yes.
of that particular organ?
No, they are of the choir singing
and the organ,
Yes, and the organ, yes. Sometimes they go to the studio, or sometimes the organ is recorded. And those times, so you could, there were not too many radios, but of course, the radios that were available then, not the FM stereo where you have shorter frequencies, shorter wavelengths, anyway, and higher frequencies, but then you have longer wavelengths, so you could hear them maybe far away in all West Africa. So Omofe has always been like that, and of course they've had prominent organists and choir masters too. I think there's Alex Peters, there's Lord Alufadeju, father to Iye Alufadeju of the Imole Okan fame. Imole Okan is just like your Molua that you have in Ibadan and all sorts like that. Then and so many other prominent people. Of course, Sonola who played there too came in around.
Let's just stop there. Let's go to Dr. Ifaturoti. So Dr. Ifaturoti, from where Mr. Tayo Oginni is taking it now, who are the pioneers that perhaps you've experienced or heard about them, or you have actually, getting to know their work in one way or the other? Who are these pioneers, and how do they contribute to this rich history that is being laid down for us today?
Thank you very much. Of course, my very good friend, Mr. Eyitayo has done a lot of justice to, the history as far as church music is concerned in Ijesha land. And if we're going to be specific, I think, of course, is saying a lot about Omofe, and rightfully so. He's from there. I think for me, what defined music around there were just the two biggest instruments around in Ilesha itself. Omofe, of course. That is beyond the question. And of course, the organ in Ilora, which came, I think, around the 80s, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 84. Yeah. So, it's those were the two biggest instruments in town, and these instruments define what music was for me. So, considering that, you could speak about, the pipe organ as a catalyst, because I don't think it's a coincidence that the best of the best organists we ever had in Ilesha were either in Omofe or in Ilora. It wasn't a coincidence. These organs attracted, the best hands. And if we're talking about specific names, I think we can talk, of course, about Pai Shola Farore. Of course, we can talk about Pai Shola Farore, who schooled in England, I think. If I'm not mistaken, now he's schooled at the Guildhall School of Music. yes, he schooled in England. I mean, is a proper organist. He was a schooled organist. Of
Wow.
course, we
Okay.
can talk about Chief Adetunji, who I think succeeded him in Iloro. And coming over to Omofe, I think Mr. Oginni will be in a better, position to talk about the organist in Omofe. But of course, um, from a personal point of view, the organists I experienced in Omofe were Mr. Sunday Olawu, of course, now Professor Olafasheru. You have Lekan Abiodun. You have I forget some other names. I mean, like I said, Mr. Oginni will be in a better position to speak about that. And I mean, I hope that answers your question. I totally have a different perspective as regards the organ school thing, but I think we'll come back to that later. But if you're
Definitely.
talking about specific organists, I think yeah, these were the ones who I can readily recall. Of course, Femi
Okay.
Farori, of course, I can possibly forget him, and so I think those are the ones I personally experienced. I mean, talking history now, I think the other panelists who really experience these organs firsthand will be in a very good position to give those names.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Then, if that's the case, let's take it to Mr. Korede Omopeloye. Yeah, Mr. Korede, I'm talking about the pioneers, the notable organists who laid the foundation, or let's use the word who inspired the coming generation. And it's the first time I got to know now that Pa Ishola Farore actually studied formally in Guild School. I didn't know about that, So, but the question then is, who are there? Who were his contemporaries? Who, those who actually work with him, and how have they influenced perhaps your own generation, generation before you, and those that you actually took the baton from, Mr. Korede?
Thank you very much. I think, like Dr. Ifaturoti said, Mr. Oginni is in a better position to give responses to all those people. I didn't get to Ilesha until 9, and that was because, and I'm going to say this fairly, and that was because then the route or the route, as we say in America, is once you play at All Souls Chapel, Ife, the next place to go and play is St. Peter's Ishono, so that you can experience people at Ishono, at Omofe, then come back to Lagos, as I was advised by Mr. Olawu. So I went through that from those Chapel, Ile-Ife to St. Peter's Ishono. Then, of course, always trying to sneak out during services or choir practices to Omofe. And then we had to move around we moved around from Omofe to Iloro, where we met Pa Eyitayo, isn't it? So that's Adetunji. So that's where my own my own information comes from. So direct that question back to Mr. Oginni. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, let's try one more stuff with Mr. Lekan. Mr. Lekan, what do you think? Do you have, perhaps you have played also, at least until recent time before coming back to Lagos also. So what's your take on this? The pioneers.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, Eyitayo has done a lot in terms of history and reference to a number of names like the Alex Peters and all of that. And I am particularly thrilled, by his reference to even the 1890s and all of that. I didn't know that much. But well, I'm just going to build upon the foundation he has laid, talking about the pioneer organists, those I know about, the likes of Pa Elufadeju of Imole Okan, a very, very prolific composer too, sound organist, and that's one of the people that I know actually inspired the culture, especially at Omofe. Not only by producing music and playing the organ, he was also instrumental in encouraging the young ones. I heard from history how when Mr. Sunday Olawo, just showed up right there in Omofe, Ilesha, he was the one who said, okay, I am giving you a free accommodation, everything. He was the one who, in fact, the church was still, the vicar of the church and the elders were still all up and about looking at, okay, what to do, whether we should let him go. Because Sunday Olawo only showed up, nobody was expecting him. I think he was just walking about trying to explore the area from Ife, where he was a student, and then he got hooked up by the likes of E.A. Lufadeju, especially. I would also, of course, as Dr. Ifaturoti said, the likes of Ishola Farore, Chief Adetunji, who also took over, as I heard from Ishola Farore. I didn't know Ishola Farore in person, but I know I got to meet Chief Adetunji and, at Iloro. Then I would also refer to the likes of Mr. Femi Ogunlusi, who was my teacher as Methodist High School Ilesha. He was the one, it was from him I first heard about anything music, lines and spaces, crescendo, semi-brief, and all of that. It all looked like Greek to me at the time. But by the time I was going to pick up the interest, it was amazed at the level of progress. I would also talk about Mr. Sunday Olawu and Professor Fashiru, who were both at Omofe at the time I joined the choir as a young chap, particularly interested in learning the organ, who picked me and said, look, okay, I'm giving you access to what we used to call fakafiki, ammonium, so that, yeah, it works so that the faster and heavier you pump, the louder it becomes, and then you use your hands to do justice to the piece of paper in front of you. I'd also talk about, of course, Mr. Modupe Busoyo, who took over from Olawu, as well as the late Femi Farore. Late Femi Farore had a lot of influence on me, especially while I was learning. I followed him virtually everywhere. Yes, because of course, as at that time that I finished secondary school and I was free. I wanted music by all, at all costs. The likes of Ola who had left Ilesha, it was Femi Farore that remained. So I had to cling to him. So well, that's afterwards, the likes of us took over, and then we handed over to other people who keep the flag flying currently. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
There for now.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you so much. Okay, let's come back to Mr. Finally, let's come back to your table too.
Okay.
Everybody's talking about you. Then the point for me is, these people, how can you tell us about, I mean, who are they? At what time do we have Ishola Farore, then Chief Adetunji, then this Sunday Olawo? I know these people there's a kind of interconnection between their influence overlap to some extent. Yeah. How do we unveil that or explain that?
Okay. Thank you very much. Well, Ishola Farore was born in Methodist. I would presume he attended Otakwete. That's the Methodist Cathedral, Otakwete. Ironically, Otakwete too had a pipe organ that was donated by later on Pa Janaku, and that should be maybe in 1982 or so. But unfortunately, the organ didn't last because I think, you know, one thing about pipe organs, unlike digital organs, is, I mean, you know, the mechanism had its functions and it works and everything. So I think the organ was put in storage, and little kids just went there and were blowing the pipes, and for every pipe you remove, you know, so that's the damage the organ. So Ishola Farori was from Otakwete, and but he played at Iloro. Iloro got a Detlef Kluka organ, a 3-manual. I don't know if you can just put the slides on.
Okay, the slides.
You know, so they got a Detlef Kluka, a 3-manual organ from Germany. Of course, Detlef Kluka was a German builder, defunct too. So, and that's actually complemented the Omofe organ. So, Iloro being the cathedral, you know, everybody went there, and I mean, all other parish churches had to, you know, go there at one time or the other, you know, and to worship. And a very, very good precedence too. I mean, aside to this is the Omofe organ anyway. That's the that's the sorry, is it on?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the Omofe organ. Yes, it's a 2-manual organ for the 3 stops, and built by Alfred Davis. I will come back to our discussion.
Okay.
This is Iloro. Those are the 2 towers, you know, of course.
Okay.
Like most churches. Yeah, this is the bishop, but just behind the bishop, you'll find the pipes of the organ.
Yeah.
Just behind there on 2 sides, the north and south transepts. You know, Omofe organ again. Iloro. Okay, this is the Iloro organ. It's a 3-manual. That's Mr. Ogulusi.
Okay.
Now, Mr. Ogulusi was, if you learned music in the 80s, say late 80s or mid 80s / 90s, all through the early 2000s, you must have learned it. There's a 60 or 75% chance that Mr. Ogulusi must have been your first teacher.
Wow.
Yes, must have been your first teacher, you know. He taught at Franciscan, many of us went to Franciscan, you know. He taught at Methodist High School. Methodist High School offered music, and St. Margaret's too. So, and he was organist at Ishono, St. Peter's Ishono, where Mr. Omopeloye played, and he's now at the cathedral, is the cathedral organist too.
Wow.
There. This is Otakwete Methodist Cathedral, the only Methodist cathedral to have a pipe organ. And I mean, well, the only Methodist cathedral in Ilesha. Okay, there's a Umolo too, but they had a pipe organ, the one we're talking about. And
okay,
this Okese, they had, that's another, like,
wow.
This is the Omofe organ, the first console. You can see it's one unique thing about this organ is there is a twin of this organ at African Better. Yes, Alfred Davis too, because the layout is very similar, you know, tap stops instead of draw knobs, you know, and so Alfred Davis, same, and in fact, let me even say same number of stops anyway, but that one is a 3-manual, this is 2 manuals, and lovely organ, trust me, very, very lovely organ. That's the Loro again, and
we are still coming back to that.
So let's leave that part.
Yeah.
So after Ishola Farori did very, very well at Iloro, you know, because it was the cathedral, and he was very, very meticulous. You could see even from his compositions, you know. Tito Bilolua happens to be the popular one that everybody knows. I mean, Tito Bilolua, you know, he also had this there's this controversy maybe between, but he also did a song Eucharist for Yoruba service, the 1662 order, and so many other things. Then if you come to Omofe, you had Iyelu Fadeju, of course. Then you had Yemi Akinpelu came late 80s, I guess, late 80s, and so Yemi Akinpelu too, you know, that was where he started Nightingales. I think we're done with the slides. That was when he started the Nightingale group, you know, Nightingale Voices, and a very, very good part of Nightingale Voices is, you know, there's this song, Omopeloye, was composed by James Yankee. James Yankee, a Ghanaian, came to Nigeria, you know, during the Ghanaian issues, and they all came to Nigeria. We had many Ghanaians living in Ilesha then. So, and he rearranged Omopeloye, which is a classic by any standard today. And Kabiyesi Ozana too was, I think, arranged around 88 or 89. I'm not too sure now, but I mean, I will check my archives too. You know, everything, all these were done at Omofe because Nightingale Voices too was domiciled at Holy Trinity. So after Yemi Akinpelu was, I think, was lecturing at the College of Education, but they had to leave, and there was need for an organist. So the vicar then was Awoshoga, the late Bishop Awoshoga. He was venerable at Omofe. Wow. Omofe was an acting read then. So I think he was writing, there's this story that he was writing a letter that was to take to the music department at the College of Education. So while he was still drafting that letter that he needed maybe one of the music students to come, and stand in as an organist,
Yeah.
that was when Sunday Olawu, with a young boy, was just walking in front. He had gone to different churches. He saw the organ at Iloro. So he was like, okay, this is a big church. And he came in, saw the sexton, and said, so you guys have a pipe organ? And he said, yes. And he said, okay, no problem. Can I play? And the sexton was like, you can play the organ? And he said, yes. And so he just took him to the priest, and and they played. And when they said, okay, fine, sent him to Babalu Fadeju, as Mr. Lekan said. And when Fadeju just said, and the next thing he said was, okay, I would ask you. So if you look at the chronology from Iyelu Fadeju up until Olawuwo, then after Olawuwo was Saul Modupe, Femfarori. Femfarori had like 2 or 3 stints, then Lekan Abiodun took play. So all those years, people used to come to Omofe, for instance, to to see the pipe organ, listen to the choir, because of course there is no way you have a good pipe organ and your choir won't be affected by it too. Same at Iloro too. Pade Tunji, fantastic organist. Fantastic organist. Maybe many people will know his son, Pade Tunji, but fantastic organist. And Mr. Ogulusi, Femi Ogulusi assisted him to at Iloro. So like Dr. Ifaturoti said, those 2 churches, yes, there are other churches too, but those 2 churches really set the pace for Ijesha land, and which actually carved the Ijesha School of Organ. And
okay, I'm going to take it from there again. Let's go back to Dr. Ifaturoti. So from this insightful introduction and history from my brother, so then the question is, what exactly then define the Ilesha, what can call the Ilesha organ culture in your own opinion? Or let me put it this way, what are the approaches that one could pinpoint that, oh, these were the things that I noticed that perhaps could shape or define that culture, what we call the organ culture from Ilesha or Ilesha, yeah.
Well, thank you very much. I mentioned it earlier. I think I'm of a totally different opinion when it comes to culture and comes to the school thing as regards the organ in Ilesha, not just in Ilesha, in the Southwest and in Nigeria generally. All right. I think going through the names that have been mentioned, fantastic organists in their own right, but I think it's premature to talk about an organ culture or talk about an organ school in Ilesha. I mean, I beg to, I don't know, I just crave the indulgence of my participants, and of course yours. I don't think there's anything like a Nigerian organ school or a Southwestern organ school or an Ilesha organ school.
Okay.
I mean, now I mean that's my point of departure in any case. All right. Okay, let me just start from the point that all of these organs we're talking about are dead now. There's no functional pipe organ anywhere. I stand to be corrected, but in the Southwest, I don't think there's any, except in Lagos. Maybe 2 readily come to mind. I'm not sure. Please, I'm really not sure, but only 2 pipe organs come to mind. Even when we talk about Lagos. Now, all those organs are dead. What defines a school? What defines a school is scholarship. Basically, that's the easiest way I can put it. I mean, if you look at the very first generation of Nigerian organists, I mean, away from Ilesha now, you can talk about Patty K. Phillips. He was a medical doctor. He still went ahead and studied music. The same thing if you come to the second generation. Baba Showande also studied music. Not just study music, they study the organ, they actually study the organ. And if you come to even the third generation, when you talk about the likes of Baba Yobankole, he also studied the organ, all right? And I think afterwards you have names like Pa Olalomide, we have Pakayode. They actually went ahead and studied the organ. I mean, what is my point? The point is the picture in Ilesha is not it's really difficult to talk about an organ school or an organ culture. Everybody just did what they wanted to do. It's as simple as that. I mean, I don't know how, you know, how further you want me to take this, and I wouldn't want to rob the time of others if they have to speak. But the point is, what defines a school? A school is just a group of people who are connected by informed opinions about a certain subject, and my emphasis is on informed. It's not just, you know, it's not just, oh, I feel or I think. It's got to be informed. I mean, you can talk about the German organ school. You can talk about, you know, the French organ school. I mean, how can we talk about the German organ school or the French organ school? It's because there's certain elements that define, you know, organ playing in these places. I mean, I'll hold back in terms of elaboration and allow other people to speak. So, but my answer to your question is very simple. In my humble opinion, I do not think there's an Ilesha organ school or a Southwestern organ school or a Nigerian organ school, and I'll be willing to elaborate on that. I mean, in due course. Yeah, in due course. Thank you.
Okay. Wow, I like that. But just a point before passing the baton to either Mr. Lekan or Mr. Korede to come into this picture. The
Yes, please.
idea of school here is pointing or alluding to layers of practice, established practice, either intentional or intentional. At least I have a few experience which I can share as a case. The day I met Femi, the late Femi Farore at Christ Anglican Church, Elere, Agege, I had him play. You know, it was on a Saturday, a wedding. It was playing a particular wedding hymn. And I was also invited to come and play by the bride came from our own church, I think from Viney, yeah. So we
But did you accept the invitation to play?
Pardon?
Did you accept the invitation to play? I mean, after Femi Farore had played.
No,
were you able to play?
I'm coming. Pardon?
He said, did you accept the invitation after Femi Farore played?
Of course, I played. Of course,
Okay.
I even accompanied the anthem, which is I think the Diamonds are telling. Yeah, but that's not even the point. The point is that before then I was already used to Uncle Sunday Olawu was playing. He was the cathedral organist and master of music. So, and of course, either directly or indirectly, I have been influenced by his hymn playing, which I like so much. Very smooth and clean interpretation. So I think I got the same sense from Farore's playing. Yeah. So that is let's drop it there. I don't know how far this influence travels back in terms of Ishola Farore, Shifa Tunji in that area. But what I'm talking about, school of thought, is layers of influences that are ideas, ideology, approaches that have been passed down either directly or indirectly that people propagate. Today in Nigeria, there are some that we still talk about, even in composition, they want to sound like somebody. It's a conscious thing because they admire that particular composer and they are trying as much as possible to mimic or pay a kind of close attention to that person's playing, or we still have that. We have a lot of that. So that is our entry point into this ideological or metaphorical idea of school of thought. And even at that, we have hymns playing is, in fact, is a case study, but it's not my presentation. Let's go to Mr. Korede, Omopeloye. Yeah.
Sorry,
I thought you wanted me to answer your question. Anyway, I mean, okay.
Okay.
So before responding, sorry, Dr. Ifaturoti. You see, we could look at it from this point. You could say there's a school or there is no school. But the thing is, even if you don't use the word school, we could say influences.
Yeah.
We could say influences. For instance, there is no way you would say Sunday Olawu was playing doesn't rub on you or doesn't rub off on you as a violin organist, or Femi Farore's playing doesn't rub off on you as an Omopeloye organist. Let's even go to Ibadan. Dr. Olayemi, Ayo Oluranti, Hakim Olubi, Ola Olumideyi. This, you like it or not, they are schools. They are influences. There is, if you are a seasoned organist in Ibadan, you must have passed through the tutelage of these people. So I think that is what you were saying. Yes, I know you've been an academic. You have a different opinion from us. So Maybe Korede and Lekan can take it up
Yeah,
from
yeah.
here. Yes.
Okay, Mr. Korede, I think let's quickly have you on this issue of school of thought or not school of thought, because on many occasions also, I'm sure you just mentioned Akinlubi, that's another generation from the Ibadan axis.
Yes,
The
Ibadan,
Baba
yes.
Omideyi's,
Oh,
axis,
yes.
and if you see the likes of Enisegun Onitilo, the likes of Akinlubi, the likes Muyiwa
Christopher,
Alabi,
yeah, Muyiwa Alabi, Christopher
Christopher,
Ayordele. I mean,
their
lots of them.
evening is almost, you can connect.
Yes.
If one could connect, But let's ask Mr. Korede. Are you there, Mr. Korede? Or maybe while we're waiting for him to connect, let's go to Mr. Lekan Abiodun. Mr. Lekan, what do you think?
All right, thank you very much. I think I can understand. Of course, I like the the approach to the discussion of whether or not there is a school and all. But then, of course, talking about influences that have, in a way, carved out a kind of culture, looking at uh, the different places like Holy Trinity Cathedral, Mofe, St. John's Church, St. John's Cathedral, Iloro, the likes of St. Peter's Church, Shono, and all. What I see that actually defines what I would say organ culture or music culture is the zeal, the resilience of people, no old bags. Of course, you hear history. Tayo Oginni partially made mention of some people contributing £25 to buy the organ at Omofe. People just levy themselves. This is what we believe in. This is what we want to do. They go all out. When it comes to producing music too, that is this is the same thing, the same spirit. If it's a situation of resources, they go all out. Skills too, people through wherever they see it, wherever they know quality is dished out, fantastic organ, and that's why you virtually every day you find one visitor or the other at Omofe, Holy Trinity Church. Even people traveling all the way. There was one time, even the Bishop of Michigan, US, showed up at Omofe Ilesha with his entourage and all of that. And fantastic organists, people from different walks of life, just because there is that like yes, that structure, on ground, same thing. Of course, I know there are things related to that also at Cathedral in Iloro, and of course St. Peter's also tried. They at the time St. Peter's Ishono bought their organ, I understand, the amount of efforts and all of that went into it. Everybody just wanted something, good quality music, especially as regards organ. The likes of St. James's Church at Imo, I think, even if they couldn't afford a pipe organ at the time, they would send people to come and understudy us at Omofe Ilesha back then, and then we go there, we teach them songs. There was also a time there was this competition also at the time, and all, in terms of choral music, and all of them, I can say, were influenced by this organ culture. People just wanted serious music, and they were ready. The zeal, the resilience was top notch. And that's one thing that a lot of us who develop from Ilesha, we take all these things to wherever we go, and that's why we stand out. Thank you.
Wow, Mr. Lekan. I think while we're waiting for Mr. Korede, Dr. Ifaturoti, I'm going to take it back to you. You wanted to say something, right? Okay, please, let's have it. Perhaps I noticed you have a response to my initial point before handing over to Mr. Lekan.
Oh, thank you very much. First of all, I mean, I don't like to dwell on individuals or personal experiences, but I think I should make this point first of all. With due respect to every organist who has played in Ilesha or is from Ilesha, I play the organ fairly well. But I never call myself an organist. I've never ever gotten anywhere to introduce myself as an organist. When organists are called, I never raise my hand. I'm not sure, but I think I mean, Mr. Oginni said because maybe because I'm a scholar, sort of, I understand the nuances of all these things. Now, what we have in Ilesha, I'm saying Ilesha because I'm from Ilesha. I can't have a bias against Ilesha. I mean, this is not, I mean, I'm sure nobody will accuse me of bias. That's why I keep saying Ilesha, because bottom line is what is true for Ilesha is virtually true for the Southwest. It's virtually true for Nigeria, but let me just say Ilesha. Now, in Ilesha, with due respect to everybody who has played, with due respect to all the organists, I think it's still very, it's quite ambitious to talk about a school. Now, you can talk about influences. They're two different things. That's why I say maybe the problem I have here is because I've been, I like to call myself a scholar. The nuances are just different. Now, I'll take you back to the French organ school very, very briefly. I don't want us to draw this, too far out. I mean, you can talk about the French music of the late 19th and 20th centuries, and it was dominated by, you've got classicist and symphonic tendencies. Those are specifics. All right. You can talk about influences. Alexandre Guilmont was a very prominent figure in those times, but he was influenced by Bach, he was influenced by Beethoven, he was influenced by Mendelssohn. He introduced certain things or certain forms, specific forms into organ playing, into the French repertory. All right. Those are specific things. It stands as a classicist. That is specific. It's the same with Leon Bollmann, for example, whose organ music captures, I mean, there's a clarity, there's a grace, there's everything. But all of these composers, they exhibit, the influence of, Wagner's harmony. Wagner's harmony influenced a lot of them. Fine, let's talk about influence. It's you can't discountenance what Baba Ishola Farore contributed. You can't discountenance what Baba Adetunji, contributed, and a lot of them from that lineage. But I am saying that when you talk about a school, you're talking about specifics, all right? And it's so premature, it's so ambitious to talk about a school when you talk about organ playing in Ilesha, when you talk about organ playing in the Southwest, when you talk about organ playing in Nigeria as of today. Because if we delve into the nitty-gritty, what are the things that define organ playing in Nigeria? I'm sorry, but what we have is just individuals who, through personal efforts, just go out there and play. In fact, Baba Ishola Farore had a phrase he used to use because, as Mr. Oginni pointed out, he was Methodist. I was also Methodist. All right. He used to say that what you guys are doing is playing with the organ. You're not playing the organ. He had that phrase. I didn't understand it for a long time, So kudos to all these guys, but it's so premature to start talking about a school when all we've got is just a bunch of, individuals who, through personal resilience and personal efforts, just started playing the organ. You can't talk about an organ school. Influence, yes. Sunday Ola was influenced. Femi Farore's influence. In fact, the first person who ever put me on an organ, on a proper organ, was Femi Farore. But these are individual experiences. These are individuals. I mean, I think we shouldn't spend a lot of time talking about that. Let's talk about the nucleus of our discussion today. And of course, in your own invitation, you actually put organ school in quotes. That tells me you have your doubts too. Okay, so I believe influence, as the other discussants have mentioned, yes, there's influence, but to talk about a school, I think it's out of place to talk about an organ school in Ilesha or the southwest of Nigeria.
Thank you so much. I am happy that you acknowledge the reality around interconnection in terms of influence. Then if we are to go back to your point, then what is school of thought? We're talking about school of thought. Although fine, it's always in quotes because we are not certain yet about this idea. Yeah, but the scars are there. Those memory scholars, we talk about concatenated memory. That is, things that are not visible, not clear, but you can see the sign across the wall, how these things have been damaged and reconnected. We could see the influence across places. When you see the Akinlubis, well, anytime you listen to him play the organ, hymns, then for the first thing that comes to your mind is a certain levels of engagement that defines some people. So we can't take this away, and that is what we are driving at here. That is the point. That's the nucleus. That's the idea we are trying to unveil, critically engage. And I like the fact that you are coming from that second area, engagement. That is what we are doing. We are engaging it. If possible, is there organ school? No organ school. It's really not the case right now. The case is we scratching, exploring this phenomenon. Yeah. Perhaps at the end, I'm fine. I'm glad you are a researcher. So we always do the work. And when we get to the analysis, we get to see, okay, if this is possible, this is not possible. So let's leave it that way. Of course, I'll get back to you shortly. Mr. Abiodun, or is Mr. Korede back? Do you think? Is Mr. Korede back? Okay. I'm not sure Mr. Korede is back. Okay. Okay, I think we should move to the next point quickly. And after this, we might just need to open the floor to everyone to engage other issues that, are quite important for our conversation today. Then we're talking about the organs. We have dwelled a bit on the fact that there are potential, narrative around connections. But let's talk about these organs themselves. So let's come back to your earlier point around, that particular organ that you mentioned. And I'm quite surprised also that you are able to connect that, affinities between the Ilesha and the organ at the Bethel Church.
Yeah, sure.
So tell us about this. What do you call it? I'm trying to get it.
Alfredi Davis.
Alfredi Davis organ.
Okay. Yeah, the Alfredi Davis organ is a two-manual organ, built by Alfredi Davis of Northampton.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's an English organ.
Yes, English, British, pure British tone. Okay. Low pressure reeds and all sorts like that. Very, very lovely tone, and I think with very, very minimal multiplexing on the ranks. So it's a fantastic organ. Yeah, over the years, because like Dr. Ifaturoti said, well, sometimes you could decide to see the glass half full or half empty, but that's if the glass is still half full. But sometimes the glass could actually be a 3/4 full or 3/4 empty.
Wow.
Either ways. Nigeria, so many things have happened. Of course, if we go into a little bit of history again, the surge for organs. Yeah, the first organ came in around 1906. I think the first Ayorinde organ came in around 1906.
1906.
Yes, should be the first organ. Actually, that organ sung at the Lagos Harbour. Anyway, but
interesting.
There was
which organ was that? Was
Ayorinde
it for Lagos or
was for Lagos? Ilesha, yeah, no. Even Nigeria was still not an Southern protectorate. Even Lagos was a colony then. So,
of course.
And I think the one that survived was 1907 or so. It's still at first act today. Yes,
okay.
It's still at first act today. So, if you
was it the organ that was taken from Aroloya to first act?
Right.
Okay. We are connecting from our initial conversation.
Yes. So the Alfredi Davis organ, lushful tone, and then you Iloro now had a Detlef Kluka, which is a German organ, and of course we've had arguments about this organ. Some organ, one being readily, one being tailored towards choral singing, the other being, but that's an argument. It all depends on preference, it depends on preference. Some of us feel the German organ is a little bit harsh, in terms of the temperament and all
I
sorts
like that. So let's dwell a bit on that.
Mhm.
So you're talking about English organ and German organ now.
Or
And the controversy, according to you, is the fact that one is good for choral accompaniment and the other is good for
I wouldn't be that specific.
okay.
For instance, let's look at the British Organ School, if Dr. Ifaturoti will allow us to use that term. You had Father Willis Father Willis made fantastic organs like the one at Hereford, the one at Salisbury, some Durham Cathedral, so many organs. And you have David Hill. Is it David Hill? Okay, Hill organ anyway, the one at Peterborough. Now, Father Willis organs had, when you look at the tuba, for instance, I mean, robust and but Hill's tuba is a little bit, thinner in sound. And even when the Peterborough organ was retuned, I think the A was 4/4. I'm not too corrected. Instead of 440 was maybe 445 or whatever it is,
Okay. Okay, let's wait. Let's go to Mr. I will come back to Dr. Ifaturoti. I'm sure he's waiting to hear from you regarding that idea of British and French organ and the controversy, German organ. There's another component of this controversy that also brings in the French organ school. Also, yeah. So let's unpack everything once and for all. But I'll come back to that. Mr. Lekan.
Yes,
Lekan.
yes, I'm with you.
I've played the organ at what is this cathedral? Iloro, and also the one at Omopeloye, right?
Yes, Omopeloye. Yes.
Yeah. So what can you tell us about this organ in terms of specification and quality, tone, from your own experiences? What can you tell us about them? We just spoke about the Alfred Davis organ and its uniqueness. What are the nuances of this organ that we can learn or open us to other layers of conversation around organ sound, particularly in Southwest?
Thank you very much. Starting from, of course, the one at Omopeloye, Ilesha, two-manner organ, it looks all small, but with a lot of interesting stuff that makes it that gives it a lot of power. For example, I'm going to, because one of the first things that that makes it attractive for me is the quality of the foundation stops.
Okay.
Very clean, creamy foundation stops. Find bordons and all of that, and open wood and a number of other things. The sound, well, of course, as Mr. Oginni said, different opinions about which one is better, the one at Iloro or the one at Omopeloye. And then, of course, schools of thought saying, okay, one for choral, one for me. I just dwell on what distinguishes each of them. For me, still talking about the one at Omopeloye, as I said, the quality of the foundation stops, not too many mixtures and all of that. But then also I'll talk about there is one particular stop on the pedal that I'm yet to really be able to feel at other places, well, except for a few times at on the organ at Marina. It's, as far as I'm concerned, is just comparable. That that resultant bass, you hear like, very clean and cool and all, So for me, the organ at Omofe, as well, I can also say, of course, it's custom built for that particular building, and so the sound in there is is kind of heavenly. And having played there, with hymns and with a lot of concerts, well, for me, it's just perfect for whatsoever you want to do in there. Meanwhile, the one at Iloro,
No.
but of course, with a lot of course, there are some solo trumpets that I actually, enjoy on, or I used to enjoy on that organ. And meanwhile, as Mr. Oginni said, there is this argument about whether or not it's harsh and all of that. But then for me, it's just whatever you want, so far you know how to manipulate the organ, you get it. You understand? So that's all I'm just going to say about those two organs.
Thank you so much. So the resultant 32 feet. Why? Yeah, that's that stuff, for the vase. So you mean it's not available, on other organs? Is that the case?
No, it's available on the organ. Okay, the organ stop. I mean,
Yes, okay.
it is. Sorry, let me just, because I will allow.
All right. Okay.
So, who's speaking? Is it Ifaturoti or?
Yeah,
Lekan?
that's Mr. Lekan. That's Mr. Lekan.
Okay. Yeah.
Abiodun.
Okay. So,
all right,
go on.
yeah, that particular stop is there on a number of other organs. I think the one currently at the cathedral, I can refer to it, but the feeling, the way these organs are made and the way they are voiced and tuned for the particular edifice, might just be different. But just my feeling of the one at Omofe, it's just all different. Of course, there is that resultant base 32 on the ones at least I can attest to that, at the ones currently at the cathedral in Marina. But then the feel, is just what I was referring to.
Wow, but that's interesting. Thanks for drawing us up or pulling out that particular stuff, and I'm sure we have a lot of specific ideas like that across it. Okay, Dr. Ifaturoti, I noticed you want to respond to Mr. Tayo's idea, comparison or allusion to that controversy around the German organ for choral, right? And the British organ for in the Nigerian, particularly in Nigerian context, or let's say Southwest.
Nigerian context, yeah.
Nigerian context.
Thank you very much. It's not as much as responding to him, because a lot of these things are subjective actually.
Okay.
Even when we talk about schools, a lot of those things that define these schools are very subjective.
Yeah, of course.
The bottom line is, as long as your opinions are informed, as long as they're not just, oh, I think, I feel, all right, then you're good to go. Now, talking about German and British instruments, I mean, it's quite clear. I mean, these are organs in their own right. And I mean, I experienced the Lora instrument, I experienced the Omofe instrument, and both are great organs in their own right. Everything comes down to how well you're versed as an organist, how well you know how to play the organ. Let me just put it that way. Now, the Iloro organ has the tendency to find you out, especially as regards your your capabilities in terms of registering on the organ, because it's a typical, it's a typical German instrument. All right, you've got very loud mixtures. You do, I mean, the reeds too, you don't have them in you can't have chorus reeds, all of, I mean, Mr. Abiodun mentioned that he liked some some solo stops on that organ, but yeah, the reeds are usually solo stops. You can't have that, chorus on most German instruments. And of course, I can describe it as, an instrument with a lot of breath and a bit of windiness, you know. But the Omofe organ is your typical British instrument. I mean, the tonal finishing, I mean, I mean, it's quite right to say it's, geared towards supporting, choral music. I mean, that could be very, 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 very correct. But bottom line is, anybody who is well trained can play either of these organs and, actually, like, make a lot of sense out of them. It's not, I mean, the question of what organ is better than the other simply sounds like, when football fans argue what team is better than the other one. Actually, you won't find anybody from Omofe saying the Laura organ is better and vice versa. I mean, that's just, inter-church kind of rivalry, I mean, which is okay. But I mean, for scholarly purposes, none of the organs is better than the other one, and none of them is unsuitable for either choral singing or, performing organ repertory. But of course, you have to mention that the Omofe organ was, in terms of disposition and in terms of temperament, was a fantastic instrument. I mean, it's so sad that the organ is dead. It's one of the best organs I've ever heard anywhere in the world, really. It was conceived for that space, and it sat in that space, and it was just the right instrument for that space. And I think anybody who has played that instrument has got the same feeling. It was a fantastic instrument. It was a fantastic instrument. So the question is not what organ is better than the other. The question is about the competence of the organist. Each of those organs were perfect, and it's just a shame they're dead.
Wow. So you mean they are dead literally, and it's not possible to revive this organ culture?
Nah, they're not dead.
Nothing is impossible. I mean, when I say dead, I crave your indulgence, because I'm not someone who's given to half measures. I know the Omofe organ still probably, I don't know the last time it was played, but now, I mean, when you don't maintain a pipe organ for a long period of time, things like that are bound to happen. The Loro organ, I believe, still functions, but it's probably like 15 to 20% of its original power. So pipe organs are very, they're very demanding in terms of maintenance, and they're very expensive to maintain. So this is not like blaming anybody for this. It's purely a financial decision. But all the same, I think it's sad they are dead, basically. It doesn't mean they can be revived, but I'm not sure how that is going to work out, given the cost and, the manpower needed to revive these organs.
Right. Sorry, I wouldn't say the organs are dead, like dead. Not really. I think the Omofe organ, yeah, for some, probably between 2004 and 2015, 16, was not played at all. Yeah, but yeah. It was a pipe organs are expensive to maintain, like you said,. But I think, I think Prince Lufadeju repaired it around 2016 or 2017, So, and I think when I went home for Christmas, it was still played. Yeah, does it sound optimally? Of course not. And because if you look at the manpower to repair pipe organs, and pipe organ technicians in Nigeria are like an endangered species. They are not that many anymore. You understand? So, I mean, if I had my way, maybe someone like Arisen, of course, maybe the Cosin or one organ company could come, because it's a lovely tone. But you'll have to make do with, which is particular to most organs in Nigeria, except say Marina, TBS, and maybe the Chief Okewo's house. Every other organ in Nigeria is facing the same challenge, because technicians are not that many, and when you get even the technicians, the same person who does is the person who you expect to voice, is the person you expect to tune, So when fatigue sets in, and what's the budget? I mean, there's a church on Lagos Island, and when you hear the budget, they ran to the local person. So when the blame comes, eventually, you know, it's something that is specific to Nigeria. You understand, which is a bad thing anyway. But yeah, so I wouldn't say the organ has not been played. Yeah, I mean, it's the functions. Maybe not to what you heard 20, 25 years ago. So yeah.
Can I respond to that, please?
Definitely, please do.
Yeah, it's not a question of, I mean, for me, when I say dead, I mean, I tend to, by default, I tend to, you know, I mean, my benchmark is always, you know, standard practice. I mean, what obtains all over the world. So I'm sorry if I use the word dead, but actually, a pipe organ is not something that can function at 70, 80%. It's got to be 100% all the time. That's a downside. It's got to be at 100% all the time. So I use the word dead relatively. I mean, for me, those pipe organs are not, I mean, especially for someone who experienced them when they were the height of their powers, and for someone who I mean, for me, they're just there's really nothing you can do on those organs anymore. All right. I mean, so for me, they're practically dead, but I use that, you know, relative to what should be. If they're going to be resurrected, I mean, that's a possibility. But in terms of, I mean, like you have said, in terms of manpower and in terms of the, you know, the finances that are required, I'm not really sure that is going to happen. And the fact that these instruments have been dead for a long time, I mean, sorry, I have to take you back to the school thing, is what makes it like almost impossible to talk about a school, because that means a whole generation of the so-called organists have never experienced the pipe organ. It's just unheard of. It's unheard of. I'm not sure how we're supposed to be talking about organists. Even, I mean, I can't even use the word organist for them in the first place. They've never experienced a pipe organ. If you've never experienced a pipe organ, I'm not sure how you're supposed to even, like, I mean, if the digital organ is the only thing you've experienced, there's just too much. There's just a lot. I mean, talking about learning organ repertoire, even hymn playing that are informed by nuances peculiar to the pipe organ, that which makes it difficult if you have not experienced the pipe organs. It just makes it difficult. I mean, I could give example of, I mean, you mentioned Femi Farere a lot. You mentioned, I mean, there have been lots and lots of names today. I mean, I'll stick it to Mr. Lekan Abiodun. If Mr. Lekan Abiodun still plays today, I mean, if you know your onions, you just understand he's had a lot of experience with the pipe organ. It informs everything, you know. It informs your registration. It informs literally everything you have to do on the organ. So for me, it's
can I
yes,
interrupt you for a second? Are you saying, in essence, that the new generational, the new soundscape in terms of digital organ, are you saying they are not fit into this category of organists? Or are you perhaps are you pointing to the fact that we can substitute the digital organ sound and culture with that of the pipe organ? Is that your
no,
point?
I'm not going to make any sweeping statements. The only thing I'm going to say here is I'm very particular about scholarship. All right. And that is why I refuse to. Nigeria is full of Nigeria is full of what I like to call amateur organists. All right. Now, being amateur is not being condescending. All right. I'm also an amateur organist. An amateur is simply someone who's not a professional, and is that simple. What makes you a professional, we all know. I'm not going to delve into all of that. And to be an amateur organist who has been brought up on a staple informed by this I refuse to, I don't know if I should use the word contraptions. I mean, I grew up in my home church. I had a jam organ for years, while someone like Mr. Abiodun and Mr. Oginni, I mean, grew up with the proper pipe organ. So until I started going to Omofe, I hardly could discern. I never, I never knew the difference. Now, coming back to the organist theme, for organists who have been raised on this staple of different, you know, contraptions from different parts of the world in the name of, you know, digital instruments, I'm not sure how their scholarship is supposed to be informed. And it tells, the figures are alarming. I am not sure how many Nigerian organists have been able to get admissions abroad based on their organ skills. It's almost impossible. it's almost impossible. I'm not sure. I'm not making any sweepings. If there are, I mean, I stand to be corrected. But that tells us that we're doing something wrong. There's a lot we're not doing right. And we need to acknowledge these things and sit up and start doing things right if we really want to flourish in terms of organ music. I mean, especially now that, you know, everybody's an organist, literally. As long as you can run the scale of C major, you're an organist. It's pretty alarming. I mean, it's pretty alarming, but I think we should dwell more on the scholarship aspect of it. For the scholarship aspect of it, the pipe organ is not negotiable. So I'm not really sure how we can raise organists on
But the question is
instruments other than the
again,
pipe
to
organ.
interrupt you again.
Okay.
Are you considering the Nigerian changing social and economic and political context in terms of pipe organ maintenance and the survival of such culture? Isn't that why the new soundscape has been, eclipsed or has been dominated, overwhelmed by the new generational sound of digital organ?
Now, your question is very simple and straightforward, but it's also very complex. Complex in the sense that I hate to give excuses. I always love to think when there's a will, there's a way. All right. I simply think it's because we were not willing. That's why the organscape is the way it is. Nothing can replace a pipe organ. Now, taking into cognizance the realities, economic realities, the socio-political realities, of course, you can have 1,001 excuses. I mean, I can't imagine a church having, I don't even know how much it's going to cost. Before we used to talk about 100 million, 150 million in terms of, buying a pipe organ. I can't fathom now how much it's going to cost buying a pipe organ. So it's going to be very unrealistic of me to say, oh, churches should go for pipe organs. How are they going to afford it? It's just very unrealistic. But I still think when we have got the will, there's going to be a way. Nigeria is a crop of elite. I use that word very, very sparingly. Nigeria's got a crop of elite who can make this happen, basically. If the government wants to invest more in arts and culture, we can push for, organ music to, to be part of that improvement also. There's 1,001 things we can do to, improve or even make, organ art thrive, because it comes back to the fact that some of us are just alarmed by what the organscape, if I can use that word, looks like. It's simply alarming. And what makes it alarming is the break in terms of tradition. After the generation that produced the likes of I think okay, let me not say okay, after the generation of the likes of Dr. Olayemi, Abiodun Ojo, and the rest of that generation, I am not sure anybody afterwards, I mean, very few organists afterwards have had, like up and close interaction with what proper organs should be. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't want to make any sweeping statements again.
I'm going to quickly interrupt you, and let's quickly. I'll come back to that. Mr. Lekan Abiodun, what do you think about Dr. Ifaturoti's ideas of the ability to transfer the experiences of the pipe organ into the new generation? What's your opinion about this? Particularly new, the new generation, the new culture, the new sound, and the new, performance we have today.
All right, thank you very much. Well, it's a very dicey one. There was a discussion online, one of these music platforms on WhatsApp, where the discussion revolved around something like this, transferring the skills and all of that to younger generations. And there were questions around whether or not the younger generations, the younger generation is actually really interested in it or whatsoever. But the thing is, the situation of economic situation has actually pushed a lot of people, even people who went through or have had one interaction or the other with the professionals, with people who.
Okay, perhaps that's network. Okay. While we are waiting for Mr. Lekan to join us again, quickly, Mr.
Them,
Tayo.
and
Okay,
Okay.
please carry on. Thank you.
okay, all right. Many of them, going into, well, downplaying the organ thing and then going for what could put food on the table and all of that. And so it's a difficult thing. But then when there is a will, there is a way. When there is someone interested, particularly interested in getting the quality, getting the skills handed down to them, there would be a teacher. There will be someone ready to dish it out to them. So it's a serious, actually it's a serious issue, not only in terms of music, in terms of organ music, in terms of virtually everything, in Nigeria. I am afraid quality is being downplayed. Fast, just make money, be comfortable, do barely enough to get by. So far you get by, no problem. You understand. So that's the issue for me. But then in terms of ability to transfer, to hand down training skills and all of that, well, for people who are interested, there would be a teacher. There will be someone to give it out to them.
Wow, thank you so much. Mr. Oginni, quickly, perhaps quickly before we are opening to our colleagues now.
Okay.
You mentioned the organ at Ishono. Is it Oshono or where?
Where? Just give me the context.
Okay, the organ we discussed earlier.
Iloro.
The Iloro,
Okay,
Iloro
yeah,
organ.
Iloro, yes.
Yeah, compared to what's the name of the organ at Ishono?
Ishono has a four-manual organ now. Well, in terms of manuals, the biggest in Ilesha now. Has a four-manual
Pipe organ, right?
virtual, actually. Virtual.
Okay.
Ishono has never had a pipe organ, but they have an effort sample set at Ishono now. Sounds well.
I think we are seeing within the generation of pipe organ now. I was trying to ask the difference in terms of stops and tone quality and specification between the one we spoke about,
Iloro
and Omofe.
And Omofe, okay. Well, Omofe has 43 stops.
43 stops.
43 stops. I don't know the number of ranks. I've not sat down to calculate it. So, but 43, which, if you're talking of multiplayer, but yeah, if you're talking in terms of the quality, the Posaune sounds very nice, just like your trombone.
Okay.
And of course, like Mr. Abiodun said, the foundational stops, your diapasons, open diapasons, your gidaks, your closed diapasons, and yeah, even there's the cornet mixture from your swell and coupled to your grate, sounds very well. Mr. Ola wished to use it to accompany Jesus, the Joy of Man's Desiring. Then I remember very, very well. And yeah, the resultant bass, of course, your resultant bass is your 16-foot what do you call it, gidaks, and with the tiers 10 2/3. Surprisingly, Loro 2 has the tiers 10 2/3 on the what do you call it, on the pedal, as part of the pedal. I saw that last year when I was there. But like Mr. Abiodun said, for that space, that organ was built for that space. Of course, the bias, I won't call it bias, but for British organs, so that's when you compare both of them. Dr. Ifaturoti also talked about.
Organ, is it a British organ?
No, it's German. Detlef Kluker, yes.
Okay.
Detlef Kluker. So yeah, when you now talk about the voicing, the how will I put it? The way the mixture sound, it's kind of off, a little bit sharper than what you get in your British organs. Of course, if you go to your French organs, because when you say one organ is suitable for singing, the other is. Now when you look at your French organ, 20 showing the path of Aristide and Cavaillé, you know, I mean, you know that there's a difference. You know, the reeds very, very high pressured reeds. Would you say high pressured? I mean, the reeds are more robust than the French organ. Dr. Ifaturoti, I mean, I'm running out of you know, and especially for some organ works which you have to like which are tailored. I mean, like Louis Vian's works, Marcel Dupre's works, you know, all
Yeah, difference, of
I mean
course.
tailored towards the French organ school, you know. So yeah, when you go to the British
And Dubois also.
yeah, so the
Yeah.
you know, when you listen to the British organ school too, I mean, they have these symphonic organs, you know, which
Yeah.
also gives you something that they will tell you. I mean, you can play different dispositions, maybe from your back to your so bringing it to Ilesha, yes, organs basically. What's the bottom line? Your sound. You know, that's what informs. Like, okay, I like this organ. I don't like this organ. You understand? So that's the sound eventually. And yeah, both are good organs, but I have a preference. Of course, I do.
What's your preference?
Of course, I prefer organ. Not because I'm from Omofe.
Okay.
Yeah, not because I'm from Omofe, but
Because
yeah,
the British sound, right?
I always go for
Dr.
British.
Ifaturoti, what's your
Always.
preference?
You say French.
Dr. Ifaturoti.
Do you mean in terms of organ?
Yes, in between Omofe and the other one. And why?
Oh, you want me to pick one between Omofe and the Laurel?
No, I mean, I'm just asking, what's your preference? We're talking about German sound and
Oh well,
English
I
sound.
don't know if you can talk about. Well, I think the most striking thing about what Mr. Oginni has said is, I mean, putting it in specific terms is you know, it's what we have been saying. We all the scholarship. Now you want me to pick one. You want me to pick one of the organs. I'd say if you discover the French sound, you'll do away with the British and the German instruments.
Okay.
But the point is, all of these things are subjective. As an organist, you basically have to be able to play any instrument as long as it's an organ.
Yeah, but
It's
you
as
still
simple
have a
as that.
preference. There's a place you are more comfortable.
Preference? I don't think I do. I think my focus mainly has been on expanding my skill set to be able to grapple with any of these instruments. So to talk about preference, but I mean, talking about back to Ilesha, of course, my bias will always go for the Omofe organ. I mean, that's I'm not from Omofe, I'm not from Iloro. I mean, because I mean it was just
But
a
why?
fantastic instrument.
Okay, why is it fantastic? Is it because of the stuff? Why?
I think because of the disposition was just it was just perfect for everything. For choral music, it was perfect. I mean, and it could, you know, handle literally any repertoire you threw at it. It could do Bach very well. It could do César Franck. It could do I mean, it can do 20th century music. It can even do, you know, far more contemporary kind of music. So it was a versatile instrument, and maybe what has informed my choice is the fact that I never played the Laurel organ when it was, you know, when it was I never played it, but of course I got to listen to it many times, and I think that's just a bias anyway. I mean, coming back to the nucleus of the matter now, I think the emphasis has to be on the skill set of the organist, which is what I think we should. I don't know. I think we should spend more time talking about that. I mean, it's alarming how we can create 1,001 excuses for, you know, what is wrong with Nigeria. I mean, fine, a lot of us complain, but it doesn't mean we're not doing our homework. We can have 1,001 excuses, but I think we should start proffering solutions too. And of course, Mr. Abiodun raised the fact that, oh, the situation makes it easy for a lot of younger organists to just give up. But I think, I mean, I think I've got like 3 solutions for that. I don't know if I can go ahead with it like very briefly.
Okay,
Like,
let's see.
yeah, I think we need to rethink the instrument itself, the organ.
Okay.
It's a relic, it's a colonial legacy, but
I think we are missing you now.
It's from us.
We are missing that.
It's the network. I think it's from here.
The network, right?
It's frozen.
music. All right. And I think we need to rethink investments too, and we need to rethink our attitude. The attitude is very, very important. There's 1,001 excuses we can give, but education now is just all over the place. Nobody has a monopoly of knowledge. You can get an organ teacher on YouTube, you can get anywhere online. If you can't afford to have lessons every week, you can afford to have lessons once a month. If you can't afford once a month, you can afford once in 2 months, and so on and so forth. So I think the attitude is what we really, really need to, rethink. This is talking about organists. Enough of the excuses, really. We're not doing a lot of things right, and it's high time we started to, look at. High time we looked ourselves in the mirror and be like,
Thank you
okay,
so much,
this problem is mine.
Yeah, thanks so much, Dr. Ifaturoti. Okay, let's open to our friends quickly as we round up this session, and let's see. Our friends and colleagues, thanks so much for your time and waiting. It's been an interesting journey today also. So let's have your question, and we have in-house we have Mr. Eyitayo Oginni. Then we have online Dr. Adeboye Ifaturoti. We have Mr. Lekan Abiodun. We have Mr. Korede Omopeloye also. So it's been an interesting journey exploring the organ culture, particularly from the Ilesha axis, and also using that space to explore the broader social and artistic and technical life of organ, both in Nigeria and beyond. So we are happy to open, for further engagement from our colleagues, and let's see. Okay, let's start with Dr. Oluroti. Let's start from there.
Thank you very much, and thank you for this very interesting session, which I so much look forward to. Before I share my thoughts, I want to direct the question to both Dr. Ayorinde and Mr. Eyitayo. And before I ask that question, let me say that we are in Nigeria. We see how we build our roads in Nigeria, and we are used to roads being constructed to get bad within 1 month. Whereas in places like Germany, they build roads that last for 21 years. They do a 20-year burning test. Nothing happens to the road, and that is their standard. And here we are in Nigeria, our own standard. Even when we say some roads are motorable, they have potholes. That is our standard. And there's something we're known for in Nigeria, all over the world. Whatever our situation is, we put the world as the standard. Even we throw things that are normal. There's room for that, I believe. It's good to be maverick. Go against global history, go against global definition. After all, Bill Gates dropped out of school because he thought the computer can do something else. But there was substance to what he did. And what I'm sensing from you here is a reconstruction of the meaning of organs, which goes against time. It goes against global history. It goes against scholarly history. It goes against the art of organ. That is fine if you want to be maverick as Nigeria. We're on the global stage. This is Zoom. So give us clarity as to this organ school of thought that you're talking about. If you ask me what is the German organ school, I will articulate it in one sentence. If you ask me what's the French organ school, the continental organ school, the Baroque organ school, I will articulate it. Please articulate this Ilesha organ school in one sentence. And if you want to say there is no organ school and you want to talk about these influences, because you seem to come down to, okay, but when you go to this place, you can feel this Olawo influence, go to Ibadan, Ayorinde influence, Korede influence. I've had that over the last 1 hour. But please articulate this influence. What exactly is this influence? And if the influence has come to become a school of thought, articulate it. What exactly is it? That's my question to you.
Okay. You wanted to say something? I have a...
You have something to say? Okay, maybe you go first.
Okay. Thanks so
finish.
much, Dr. Oloranti. As mentioned earlier, and as you have seen from mostly from the Zoom, posters or the narrative that has been circulated regarding this particular seminar or this series, the very idea of that organ school in quote, always in quote, is simply to research into it, to look for what it is. And in doing that, it's bringing somebody like Mr. Tayo Oginni, Mr. Lekan, Abiodun, the Korede, Omopeloye of these days, and of course, Dr. Ifaturoti on one hand, and also bringing the likes of them who have different, experiences across spaces, and to engage their work, their experiences in relation to other experiences. It is through this that we map this idea of organ school. What defines it? The organ school we're talking about, the Bach organ school, the German organ school, the English organ school, didn't just emerge from the blue. It emerged from years of mapping from scholars, like what we are doing today. Scholars are still working on that idea till tomorrow. People still studying this organ school. What are they doing? They are remapping and repropagating that organ school. But before it was being re-engaged, some people have done the work and articulated it over years of research. That first stage is where we are right now. There has not been any serious from research. There has not been any serious engagement with organ scholarship in Nigeria. We haven't seen any of that. Any research on organ trying to map no. So what we are doing at Organ House, this documentation series, is simply to map that very idea, to lay, if possible, and hence I said earlier, it's always in quote. And that means we are yet to be sure if there's something like that. But from this conversation, we are into something. We are in that process of, okay, is there anything like that?
Dr. Oloranti has a dissenting opinion, so maybe we should hear it, sir.
Okay, well, my last point on that.
I don't have a dissenting opinion.
Okay, I'm actually okay. My last point then is, this is not the end of this series of articulating that articulating it is not that easy like that. And as you have seen from this conversation, and I'm very, very happy with the way Dr. Adeboye was so critical
about it.
Yeah, about it. And that's what we are looking for. We can't get a definition based on one person's idea. We need contrasting ideas, and I'm saying this publicly now. We are still going to further this process of articulating. It won't stop here. We are bringing next the Akinolubis of this world into this platform to come and tell us in his own caucus, from his own, where he emerged, what defines. What we are saying since is, what defines the Omofe? Is there anything that defines what we can call almost Ilesha Organ School based on practice? And I will keep saying this. If there is nothing around classical music, the in playing, there is something there. And that is what we'll discuss to a larger extent.
That's something. What is it? That's something. What exactly is it? Articulate it. There's a way the hymn is played, right? Articulate it. Now, you see, I don't have a dissenting view. I mean, we should be very careful. We don't want to, we already have a name in the global stage as Nigeria. Trust me. There's a lot of things going on there. Let's be careful what we throw out. Don't let us get into the arena of falsehood. If you're talking about organ school, there are two things that we're talking about. We're talking about the instrument itself, the organ. Now, let us remind ourselves, the organ is a Western instrument. We have never built an organ ourselves. The whole concept is Western. And the second thing is how it is played. This is how global cultures are defined in the globe, in the West, where this thing comes from. So if we want to define it differently, let us have more substance to it. Let me elaborate more on this. When we say how the organ is built, when you are talking about people comparing the Omofe organ to the Ilori organ, do you know what you're doing? You are actually comparing the German organ school to the British organ school. It has nothing to do with Ilesha. Those who built those organs, they came in with the ideas from these schools to build those instruments. And that's what you have there. That's those, they brought in two schools. If you go to Ibadan, for example, they brought in the Dutch school. And the history was Pa Alalade, Omidei, Belashuande. They told the Dutch that this is what we have done. This is what we think should be. The mixtures should be constructed this way. This stuff should be here. We don't want a continental sound. They were actually working on the basis of existing schools. You know, so basically, and when we talk about organs, how they're built in terms of culture and organ schools, there's the issue of the tone, that's one, and there's the issue of period. Period as in two major periods. You have the classical periods, which points backwards to Baroque to Bach, which informs how the organ is played. I will link that again. Then looking forward, we are looking at the romantic symphonic organs, eclectic organs, modern organs. Moving forward, you have all that in all these countries, in Britain, in France, and so on and so forth. Going further, you still now have some countries coming together as the continent, and then we say the continental organ. There are things that define these things. I can't unpack all these things. They are well defined. These are things that people understand when they talk about organ schools. Before we now start talking about tone, we were just talking randomly here about, oh, this organ sounds like this organ sounds like this. What's the composition of the mixture? Yesterday, I discovered the composition of Walker's mixture as against that of Father Willis. And I discovered that, both of them, they worked within the same culture. That's another thing. Walker built his mixtures based on fifths and octaves alone and multiples. Willis, he popped in thoughts, tierces, and things like that. These are the things that define how the organ is built, which translates to how it sounds. When you say, okay, you like the English organ sound, it's because the scaling, the tuning is done relative to how people sing and things like that. So these are the cultures. That's how the organ is built. Then the second part of it is how it is played, which we can articulate. We can articulate what happened from Caesar Frank, who worked with Kabbalah Cole. Kabbalah Cole, he built the organs based on instructions on how they want the organ to be played. That's how the swell organ came into existence. And then we can track that from Caesar Frank to Marcian. We can track the French school. It is about how the organ is played. Different from Baba Bach, where what defined that is so much of detached touch. There's no Baba Bach said himself, just bang the organ, it will give you the sound. And it's specifically, we can say, this is how they do it. So these are the established approaches to defining schools in the industry. So if we now choose not to follow that pathway, and we want to say, this is how we want to do it, we are still studying it, where's the meat to it? Where's the substance to it? Let's imagine we have a lot of professional organists in the world on this platform. They want to hear what you're talking about. Then you already told us. It's like you almost say it exists, or maybe scholars need to articulate it. And all these things you're talking about is history. It's history. So it's taking place. So let's talk about it now. So let's say my name is Paul Eddington Wright. Tell me these things that have happened in history that makes you think you feel like you have a school of thought that is valid. So I think we're on the verge of, of falsehood here. If we want to be frank, let us talk about history. Let us talk about historical sites. But when we go to the global stage, just like we go to some of us, we call ourselves composers, African arts music composers, we go to the global stage. And I keep saying it, we go there empty-handed. This is the same thing we're doing here again. So I'd rather let's go the way of how can we build our schools? The schools are not there. We don't have any school of thought.
Can I ask you something, sir? Do you think practice emerged on their own without history? Do you think practices, even back, emerged on itself?
I just said it now. Yes. Yes, there's practice, then you can write about practice. Do you get it? Everything you have talked about here today is historical.
Yes, and I think that is
about things that have happened so many years ago. So let us articulate all those things. And I mean, that's what I felt you wanted to do here. Let us articulate it. Yes, there's been practice. There has been practice. So from that practice, what have we learned? What's the substance that we can refer to today? What's the meat to it? What's the substance to it? If you say, oh, we're just starting, okay, let us wait for another 10, 50 years. No, everything you have talked about here, they're talking about organs installed in the 80s, in the 60s, and so on. And you've talked about people who play these organs then. And they're talking about influences. They're talking about, so yes, practice has taken place. So let scholarship take place now. What can we bring out of it and articulate as a school?
We have mentioned at least 3 today, or more than 5 today. Aims, interpretation.
How?
Yes.
The way hymns are played, articulate it. How do we play hymns differently in Ilesha, which is different from how we play in Ibadan, which is different from how they play it in Lagos? Articulate it. Tell us, Congo, how?
Well, maybe I'll throw that to Dr. Ifaturoti.
No,
and
maybe we should.
Mr. Lekan, Abiodun, yes, I will throw that to them. And again, I agree with your point, but the reality is this: we can't detach the substance from its context. And since this is a scholarly work, we will always go for context and details before coming to practice, because they inform each other. Back as mentors, he studied history, he got insights. And then all the generations you mentioned, they were product of history. If we don't know about Chief Adetunji's mentorship, Baba Ishola mentorship, how are we going to trace how they interpret or how they have shaped people? That is the thing. This is what we are doing here, is simply putting up a method of how to track practice. Our business is not so much of.
But let's talk about it going on now. Let's talk about it going on. Let's talk about it. So what exactly? We've tracked it. So what exactly have we seen in the way they play?
So are we going to finish everything today, or is it something that is like ending today, starting today and ending today? Like we're talking about maybe practice, influences, and everything. Is it starting and ending today, or is it a continuous discussion? I mean, maybe we should throw it back to you too, sir.
Let me throw it to Dr. Ifaturoti.
Yeah, you see, you're saying it's a continuous thing. And what I'm saying is that every reference you make here is historical.
Yeah.
It's historical. So what exactly is it? Say it.
Don't get the questions, sir, because it's like, yes, we've talked about it.
Let me ask you this question. You've been pointed that a figure, the big figure in your word, is Sunday Olawu at Omofe. And I think
Sorry, I don't think I said that, sir.
Oh, maybe I've got that wrong. Okay, let's assume. I assume the big figure, because I attach Olawu to Omofe. And right today, I believe Dr. Ayorinde said he met Farore playing the organ, and immediately he detected certain things. You get what I'm saying? You know, now, what exactly? I know that Sunday Olawu influenced a lot of organs. So, what is that influence as far as him playing is concerned? What's the approach? If you ask me now to tell you the difference between how Kayode plays hymns and Babomide plays hymns, I will articulate it. Do you get it? At this stage, these things are, I mean, a lot of people here and encountered Olawu was playing. What exactly is it? What's the influence that he has passed on?
What you're saying, sir, is so similar to saying, what is the difference between Ebenezer Obey and
Sonny
Ade?
Ade.
What do I say?
What you was, the question you're asking is similar to saying, what is
I
the
can't-
difference between, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
I mean, it seems that I can't hear you. Sorry.
Okay. While we are waiting for that, not you. Let's move to. We'll come back to you, sir. Let's quickly move to DBO, Dr. Bayo. We'll come back to Dr. Oluranti shortly. We'll come back to him. We'll come back to Dr. Oluranti shortly. Can we have DBO, please, quickly? Then we'll go back to Dr. Oluranti. Let's listen to Dr. Let's come back to. We'll go back to Dr. Oluranti. Dr. Bayo, can we have you, please? Is he there? Dr. Bayo? Hello? Dr. Bayo, okay, let's see who other people raising their hand. Then we'll move forward quickly. Interesting. Okay, sure. Okay, let's move. Dr. Bayo, can we have you, please?
Can you hear us?
Dr. Bayo, can you hear me? Dr. Bayo, can you hear us? Okay, I'm not sure it's there. Okay, quickly, while we're waiting for Dr. Bayo, Dr. Ifaturoti, what do you think from this? Mr. Lekan Abiodun, I will get to you right now. Just wait for it. Okay, Dr. Ifaturoti, what do you think?
Thank you very much. I think it's not about what I think as much as what obtains, actually, what the truth is. And I think I saw questions like this coming when I insisted there was no school. And I said things along the lines of, okay, let's, let's do less of individuals and talk about the substance of this discussion, which is the school. The existence or non-existence, they're up for debate. But what informs things like this is, going into specifics. Scholarly approach to issues are never about feelings or personal opinions. It's always about what is and how you can articulate this thing, and through observance. And of course, you look if you've got patterns. That's how it works. So when Dr. Oluranti asks these kind of questions, I think I relate to it perfectly well. There shouldn't be any ambiguity as far as things like this are concerned. So when you say, I mean, to reiterate what you said, okay, organ playing in Ilesha. What defines organ playing in Ilesha? I said it earlier. Nothing, actually. Like nothing. We just have had a lot of people who put in lots of effort. Effort does not translate into school. Effort does not even translate into school of opinion. I mean, let's even say we want to hold an opinion. So what we're talking about here is specifics. If you ask me what defined Olawu's playing, which influenced Femi Farore, which influenced Lekan Abiodun, you kept talking about him playing. Him playing is not him playing because it's just him playing. There are things that define him playing as you move from one particular organist to another, even, one individual to another, not to talk about one school to another, So if you're talking in terms of specifics, for example, I can talk about Sunday Olawo's phrasing. I can talk about his choice of harmonies in terms of thinking up last verses. He tended to favor the circle of fifths. I mean, if you look at what people like Lekan Abiodun do, you find this kind of influence. Like, I mean, these are the kind of specifics we're talking about. So when you talk about phrase in terms of Olawo's playing, when you talk about circle of fifths in terms of, in terms of his choice of harmonies for last verse harmonizations, you can also talk about, he's got this less detached touch. I mean, there's a lot of legato in his playing, and you've got to talk in terms of specifics. So if you ask me, I'm using that as an example. For example, you're talking about him playing. What defines is him playing? I mean, off the top of my head, it's not like I've researched these. These are the things I can easily recollect. So when we talk about specifics, these are the kind of things we're talking about. It doesn't negate anything we have said, but that is just one aspect, which is like, we don't need a Zoom meeting to get all of those things, really. I mean, it can easily come from very, very, little research. So when we kind of come together like this, it's better we kind of, concentrate on those kind of specifics and make it I mean, it's like making restricted knowledge available for the populace, kind of, I mean, having a connection. So I think that is the way I can react to that question. I mean, it's a very profound question, and it's going to do us a lot of good going forward to think in terms of questions like this, in terms of formulating, I mean, in terms of planning for future engagements. Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I agree with you, but there's also an important point here. There are some things that we all know here, particularly those, we're talking about Nigeria now, that are common knowledge, and that is the last verse. Those are common knowledge. Yeah, for some organ, for those who play, we have many organists here. I don't, although I've never, this is not common elsewhere, but in Nigeria, particularly in Lagos, that's some people, I am used to a larger extent here. In fact, even the new organists of yesterday, there are things that
I agree with you, it's common.
Yeah.
I do agree with you, it's common. But
So
see, when you talk about something like last verse, what defines it? A lot of people, I mean, the organists that dwell heavily on linear movements when it comes to last verse, they are more concerned with the harmony, or sorry, the melody. There are those who are more concerned with the harmony. There's 1,001 things you can do with the last verse. For example, let's talk about last verse. What are those things that define, the last verse relative to the particular person you're talking about, or the particular organist you're talking about? That is what you're talking. I mean, there shouldn't be any ambiguity. Last verse is too ambiguous. Oh, he plays the last verse. Who doesn't? Even those who play for Padamoni for last verse, it's still the last verse. So the defining elements of these, of these things are what is in question here. Not, I mean, nobody's questioning, anybody's position, as it were.
Thank you so much. Well, this is why we are here. This is why it is called dialogue. This is why it is called a conversation. And this is what we expect. Of course, yeah. Definitely.
No, I think Mr. Oginni's mic is bad. I think you should check it out.
Okay. Okay, we'll get it. So while we're waiting for that, the point from my own perspective is that my own job is a curator of a conversation. If I am to come and present on a Nigerian organ, it's a different case. Here we are bringing those who we thought, okay, could provide substance, could provide ideas, and we have the conversation. And wherever the conversation, move, directs, that should be it's a co-product. It's a collective, process. So, and that's what we are seeing today. And that's one of the beauty of what we do here. It is simply about engagement. And that engagement could happen in different ways. It does not necessarily mean to go in a particular way, tell me 1, 2, 3. In fact, that is not even an engagement. Engagement is when you go into processes, you provide countering, perspective. And that's what we do. And that is what I think scholarly inquiries are about. Scholarly inquiries are not about, okay, just tell me 1, 2, 3, and that's all. No, I don't think so. Scholarly inquiries are about engagement, contentions, resolutions of ideas, and bringing contrasting perspective into one, and eventually ability to match them, to synchronize them. That is what we are doing here. So I'm happy that we have moved from a particular level of engagement into another level, which is the peak and one of the definitive points of a kind of a productive scholarly discourse. So why I'm going to pause a bit. Dr. Bayo, can we have you now?
Hello, good afternoon.
Yeah, thank you.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Definitely.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Oladele, Mr. Oginni, and everybody, Dr. Yanko. I actually want to take another route because as I continue to listen to the program, it reminiscence the old 1980 era of music in Ijesha land. In my own opinion, limiting the discourse to organ school or wherever in Ijesha land it's inadequate to describe what transpired in Ijesha as a whole, because Ilesha is part of Ijesha in the 80s. There was mass how would I put it now? There was a large music brewing in Ilesha in that period that went beyond organ in Iloro and Omofe. Some of us came out from that region, and that Ijesha thing defined what we are today. So I don't want to limit it to organ. I actually want to look at how was Ilesha in those eras. For instance, we talk about an era, yes, Iloro, Omofe, we have, there's even Ijebu, where we have Fasheru, Fashino, that's Otakpete. But you see, another big factor was the Ghanaian factor, not in any other now. There was the Ghanaian factor in College of Education, where we have Richter, Banfo, and Odatilante. And that was Baba Oyeshiku's factor that made Ilesha a citadel of art music. So many people will not believe that. I did my grade 6, I think, ABRSM in Ilesha. That was a center brought by Baba Oyeshiku. If I say, even in Iloro, there was a time Sado played in Iloro, I think 1991. Akipelu's factor. Those are the things that define art music. I'm not particularly about organ now. Art music was just the in thing in Ilesha, Ishono. All over. People moving, we move from Iloro to everywhere to sing. Akipelu's factor that actually led to the establishment of a music school by the cathedral, Iloro Cathedral now, I think is St. John's Cathedral.
Right.
Yeah, I think what is my concern now is that what is happening to those things? Good idea. It's been long I've been to Ilesha. What is the update beyond organ? Is the music still there? Are the people still there? We're talking about Baba Lufadeju. There was Folowo Shele from Breweries. That Folowo Shele was a great sponsor of Nightingale. By Yemi Akinpelu. We moved from one place, we sang, Folowo Shele, actually, Nightingale moved from Ilesha to Kaduna at a point to sing. So that is my own personal concern, that what is happening, because we didn't feel Lagos in those days. From College of Education, we came to Cathedral to sing for the 60th birthday of Baba Oyeshiku. It was tumultuous. People, it was rousing applause. What is the state of art music in Ijesha land now? That I think it's bothering to me. I would like to know if there's anybody that could give me an update. Thank you very much.
Can you? Hello? Okay, can you hear me now?
Hello? I can hear you.
Well, fine. So thank you very much, sir, Doctor. Earlier in the conversation, these things have been discussed, and
the presence or absence of an organ school, even in the Nigerian context, we talked about this. And that's why the school has been put in quotes, and what we've talked largely today has reflected on influences of music, church music, in Ilesha. That was the direction the conversation went. So talking about the brand, what distinguishes this, distinguishes that, I'm not sure if you're familiar to join us at the beginning of the conversation. I mean, I'm just saying that the way the conversation had gone.
Yeah.
The concept in reality, no. Will there be a Nigerian organ school in the next 10 years if we do not have
this conversation? Yeah. We can't even start talking about that. Yeah.
What we call the foundations, we are already talking about there's a scarce paper here, there's this. So back to your question, Doctor. The last question you asked is yes, the music, of course, everywhere in the world, it's a global phenomenon. Organization happens, and people tend to move from the internet to the coastal areas or to West Lagos. Using the Nigerian context, to move away from the internet to Lagos. Everybody tries to find a ways to Lagos.
Yeah, so
music in relation to like how Ishiku interest, how Ishiku was a recorded education at the time, even out in the production of the Oko and some of the hymns of Chifi Mr. Bamford also did very, very well then when it was at Ilesha. I mean, the influence was there in the late 80s / the 90s. I think James Yankee too was there at the time. I think he left just before the mid 90s. And so if you look at all those influences, yes, Ilesha have been, and I think that's been the discussion now. Saying how many organ scholars do we even have in Ilesha? How many organ composers do we have in Ilesha? Even in Nigeria, how many organ composers do we have? So when we're talking about, when having these discussions, we're looking at Nigeria as a context.
Yeah.
Global, we can't be talking about organ schools, Nigeria in relation to other countries, and talking about Nigeria, even if we're saying, to be honest, would we compare a particularly organ works to probably a Yoruba did for just 3 years, or to Master Dupe, or to, how many organists in Nigeria today can we compare to Ifaturoti, for instance? So when we're making all these discussions, we are
specific.
It doesn't.
And it's a process also.
Tomorrow.
Okay.
And nobody's comparing and the number of organists.
No.
We're just talking about our experiences, that's all.
Well, I think, yeah. Look, again, I'm happy that we have, moved from different, layers of discourse into this particular level, and it means perhaps we are doing the right thing. Yeah. It means we are doing the right thing. We are asking the right question. We are touching on the important, discourse that has not been open for years. Because I must say, I will say it again, we are yet to see a single scholarship, rigorous engagement on organ practice, not even documentation of organists in just Lagos, not even talking about Nigeria. That is what we are doing. For us to get to that kind of documentation and scholarship, we need to first curate this kind of conversation. We need to bring people in and have this conversation. The idea, however, we need to make this clear today, of Nigerian Organ School, it's not about talking about specifics. The entry point is not about specifics. They are part of it. Like, we know all these things. Every organist across Agege, Mushin, Ibadan today, they can tell you different, they know these things. And the kind of, and the kind of conversation we want to have is deeply historical material that we don't have access to. And that is why we are bringing people who have been in this environment. We are open layers. What we are creating is archive of discourse. So in the next 20 years, some younger ones can wake up and say, okay, there is this archive somewhere. Dr. Ifaturoti said this 20 years ago about this and this. Mr. Oginni said this ago. Somebody said this. That is what we are doing. We don't have that. And that's why we are having this conversation. If we have that kind of conversation, we'll be talking about specifics today. We'll be talking about aims. We'll talk about that. But because we don't have that, we need to start from the beginning. If we start talking about specific aims, then we are losing the goal. We are scratching the surface. We want to go in deeper. And that's why we're talking about how organs are being, shipped to Nigeria. They are very important to define the history of organ music. If we don't have history of organ music in Nigeria, how do we talk about ideologies and artistic layers? We know about hymns. We know Omideye has his own ways of playing interpretations. We know the Olawuwos. We know these specifics. And we are all almost musicians. All of us, we know these things. But that is not the entry point. The major concern is to have these layers of archive for people to get into it. Yeah. So on that note, thank you so much. Again, thanks so much, Dr. Ifaturoti, for joining us, and creating time, for us to have this conversation. This, I must tell you, will not be the last. Yeah, we are still going to have another layer to this conversation, and we are still going to invite you again. Yeah. So, Mr. Lekan, Abiodun, thanks so much for your time. I know we are all busy, and you also, create time to join us. And Mr. Korede Omopeloye, who had to leave he left for another meeting in the process, important meeting. So I thank all of you for, for joining this process and, creating the time to engage. I think we are getting to that point in this conversation where we are redefining the narrative now, because initially we might have thought that, okay, what defines a particular culture is just to talk about the practice. No, the practice is the last thing at the top. It's like cake. The icing is not what defines the content. The content, there are a lot of mixtures of, entanglements underneath. That is what we are unraveling now. We'll get to a point where we are going to start talking about that. There's a process to everything. Yeah, thanks so much, our friends. Next week, we are talking about the Ibadan people. Please look forward to it. We are talking about the Ibadan people, the ideas around Ibadan. Perhaps we are going to bring Dr. Oloranti because he himself is from that Ibadan axis. Yeah. So please stay tuned for next week, and we'll definitely be happy to have you again next week. Thanks so much. Again, Mr. Eyitayo Oginni, thanks so much for your time and the insightful conversation. Thanks for telling us all these wonderful things that we don't even know, and that's the essence for today. Thanks so much. Dr. Ifaturoti, thank you so much. Thank you for today. Thank you for
having me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for those critical takes and critical perspective, and thank you for guiding us. Thank you so much. Mr. Lekan Abiodun, are you still with us?
Oh yes. Thank you very much for having me. It's been very insightful. And a lot of things that were not even initially envisaged, kind of broadening the discussion, and I think it's a good start, and we can get a whole lot of things done, right from here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Dear friends, thank you. See you next week as we engage the Ibadan people next week. Thank you so much. See you till then. Thank you. Bye.